right, with a little bit of editing magic, we go from 1991 to 1999.
Alright, welcome back to the build progress of my 3000 GT VR4. So one of the common modifications that a lot of people do in the 3000 GT and Stealth, I guess, ownership is they like to convert the front ends of their car, especially from the first gen, which has the pop-ups, to the second gen and third gen, sort of like what I did here. This car originally started out its life with the pop-up headlights, but it didn't quite go with the look that I was looking for, so I converted it over to a third gen with the more bubble style, larger headlights. But where that is a relatively common procedure that people convert the first gens to the third gens and the first gens to the second gens and so on, it's not too common that you see a lot of people convert the second and third gens with the projector headlights back to the pop-up headlight style. Thankfully, my wife, Megan, she just happened to have the third gen that I was converting to, and she wanted pop-up. So I figured, hey, if I'm converting the front of my car over, I could actually probably convert hers back to the pop-up style headlights. And I found out it's actually a lot easier than converting this forward, in my opinion. So I do see it from time to time. People are asking, like on Facebook groups, is it possible to convert back to the pop-up headlights from a second or third gen version? And I figured, well, I was able to do it, fairly simple, that I could make a step-by-step video on how to convert everything back over to pop-up, including all the wiring, the relays, the fuses, and the factory computer to make the headlights go up and down properly, and even maybe do a little extra modification on how to hook up like the lazy eye or sleepy eye look, where you can make the headlights go up part way but not all the way. So I guess let's pull this out and we'll pull hers in. And I do have my Shiba assistants with me. I got Maki and Nori. Hi babies, what y'all doing? Oh yeah? Wanna go for a ride? I know Nori, she likes going for a ride. Maki, wanna go for a ride? Let's go. There you go. You wanna get in there too? Wanna go for a ride? Come on. That's right. So originally, this car used to look just like this one. And that was the bumper and the headlights that were on this one. And vice versa, this was the front end off of that one. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put this in the garage and take off all of the first gen body panels and try to get it looking as close to that as possible. And then I'll go through the steps on how to convert this to that. And I have this box. I've probably been sitting on this box for probably over a year now. And at the end of this video, I guess it'll be a fun little just addition to put on this car. So what this is was a $20, I think it was, $20 or $25 raffle for a front splitter. And I won. So it just happens to be a carbon fiber retro spec first gen front splitter that I got for probably a whopping $20 or $25. So I guess now is a great time to put this on the front of the beater car. I mean, it'll be a shame. It'll be a shame when we actually
dig this in the ground by accident, you know, pulling into a parking lot in the beater car, but at least it's still like monster truck height off the ground. So hey, stock wheels with a splitter, sweet. All right, with a little bit of editing magic, we go from 1991 to 1999. Just a little behind the scenes of that editing magic. There was no magic, just insanity. Yeah. I quite literally just ripped the front end off my old car just for that shot. The shot probably is only going to take, I don't know, a minute, but yep, okay. Insanity, that's what it is. Yes. Alright, to do the front end swap, you will need these exterior panels. Front bumper, your side markers, snake eyes. Now the snake eyes are optional. A lot of people do run without them. Some people run with them. But if you're pulling this off a junkyard car, go ahead and pull those while you're at it. I do have the fog lights. They're in a box in the basement. Of course, you will need the pop-up headlights. Typically, they will come with these older, I guess, halogen bulbs. I have already upgraded to LED. The biggest thing is, do not forget the harness pins that go right there. There's two of them on each. One connector goes to the lights, the other connector goes to the motor. Those are very important. And then, of course, the hood. You need the hood. This part right here is optional. This is the headlight bucket and radiator support. This is out of the first gen. The second and third gen are slightly different. This one has been cut down. This was out of my older car. I did not use that on the front end of this one. Basically, all you will really need to do is if you modify your second and third gen headlight bucket is, you'll need to cut out a little area right here, and you'll need to cut out right there. That's where the motor on the bottom of the pop-up headlight will sit down in there. You'll need to make a little recessed bracket for that. This is your pop-up headlight button. This button will allow the headlights to go up and down without the lights themselves actually coming on. When you wire this into the factory wiring, it is part of the circuit that is required. When you turn on your headlights, they will pop up. Alright, next is your ETACS unit. I'm sure there's a fancy word where ETACS spells out something, but that's what I'm going to call it. So, this is under the dashboard below the steering wheel. This box basically, it ties into a lot of the components in your car, such as, I do believe, your power door locks, your security system, if it was an option in your vehicle, the pop-up headlights, and etc. and so on. It's a lot of things this little box controls. This also controls the headlights going up and down when you turn on and off the headlights. You do need a headlight timer for that circuit, and it's easier just to go ahead and cut this box out, because without this box you will need to make your own custom circuitry, which can be a little bit complex. So save yourself a lot of time, cut this out. And by the way, with both of these, do try to cut out a good chunk of the harness to go with it. You do need the mating plugs that go on the end of each one of these to wire it in. This is the fuse box that goes underneath the hood. This is not required, but if you want to wire all this in properly, you do need a relay and a fuse out of this box. Sure, you can just pop the relay and fuse out, but if you're stripping this from the junkyard, just cut the whole fuse box out, because you'll need to pop some of the pins out to repin the relay and the fuse into this box, because those wires are not currently in there. And then next, this also is not a requirement. You do not have to get this out. This is the fuse box that goes inside of the car below the steering wheel. You will be tying some of these items, such as the hot circuit, the ignition circuit, and the run start circuit, into fuses, or fuse points into here. And you'll also need to run the The light switch selector on your column will also need to tap into this. You do not have to tap your power into this by these, but I guess it's just recommended that that's where the factory put them. So if you want to get them from the same place, they'll all function correctly. And once again, it's just popping this out so you can kind of keep track. Once again, you don't need this, but it will actually make your life a little bit easier while you're trying to pin things out in the bottom.
All right, to gain access to the plugs, you'll need to remove 2 Phillips head screws from the cluster bezel. They're up here. Once the Phillips head screws are removed, use a plastic pry tool to gently pop forward the bezel. You can lean forward the bezel and then unplug the 2 harnesses that go into the buttons on either side. And I find if you put the column down over here, you can kind of manipulate it out and around. This right here is a blank button currently, but this is where the pop-up button will go to raise and lower the headlights without having the headlights on. And this is that harness that I talked about. You'll need to add a couple wires to make those headlights go up and down with the button. Once that is out, use your tool again to gently pop forward these plastic panels that hold on your mirror switch and dimmer control. And then you have your windshield wiper control on the other side. You also unplug those just like you did the top. Once those panels are out, there are 4 10mm bolts holding this thing on. There's 2 behind each panel and then 2 underneath the dashboard itself. So let's raise this back up, get some room. And then there's 2 down here. When you pull out this lower dash piece, the hood release mechanism is held on by 2 Phillips head screws. You can go ahead and remove those. And then the cable just simply pops to the side, then out. Just like that. So that way you can remove this whole thing out of your way. Alright, once you have removed the lower dash panel, you can then see the controller box that I mentioned earlier. This is what controls the headlights going up and down. This box also controls a lot of other things in the car, such as your door lock, security systems, etc. and so on. This one is the security version. The version I have is the non-security version. So the pins are roughly the same, but slightly different. You could go through and try to match up the correct controller box to the correct model, so you can just rewire the whole thing. But what I'm going to do is just add my box in addition to this one and just leave this one completely alone. But to pull it out, you can unplug it, and then there's 2 10mm bolts right there and there, and that pulls out the current box. Alright, with the lower dash removed, we now have access to all of the plugs that we need to wire up these headlights. So we're going to start with the buttons that were just to the left of the cluster. As you can see right off the bat, the main difference will be this button right here. That raises and lowers the headlight manually. And when we look at the harness on the back, we can see that there are 3 additional wires right here that are not included in the 2nd and 3rd gen version. And that goes to that button. So what we're going to need to do is de-pin these 3 wires and then place them into our factory harness. And then we can simply just unplug and swap to the new button. The next thing that we're going to need to wire up is the headlight selector and turn signal switch. This one's just out of a parts car. You do not need to take the switch, you just need the harness. But there are 3 differences as well in this plug than the one in the 2nd and 3rd gen. So let's look at those. On the 2nd and 3rd gen, the 3 wires that we are missing is 5, 6, and 7. You'll also need to de-pin these 3 wires and then transplant them into this harness. When looking at this plug on the controller box, there's 12 ports and 9 wires that we will be using. They are numbers 51 through 56 and 57 through 62. Your first 3 right here, this is 51, that will go to 12 volt constant in the interior fuse box number 19 to 10 amp. This 52 is a 12 volt run start, goes to interior fuse box fuse number 11, and it's a 15 amp. 53 is a 12 volt on the accessory, it's fuse number 10, and it's a 15 amp. Pin number 55 is motor down, that goes outside to the pop-up relay. 56 is motor up, that also goes outside to the pop-up relay. Those are located inside of the exterior fuse box. 57 goes to chassis ground. 59 is a ground. It goes to the headlight selector column, pin number 9. This is 61. 61 is a 12 volt up signal. It goes to button pin number 9 and the headlight column pin number 7. 62 is your 12 volt down signal, and that goes to button number 8. This is the headlight switch plug. You'll be using these 4 wires in the setup. This wire number 9 is a chassis ground, which also goes to the controller box pin number 59. This wire will already be in the 2nd and 3rd gen headlights. Pins number 5, 6, and 7 will need to be added to the 2nd and 3rd gen headlight plugs because they are not part of that system. Pin number 5 goes to interior fuse box, fuse number 6, 10 amps. Pin number 6 is your 12 volt signal for when your headlights are off. That wire will go to button pin number 10. Pin number 7 is a 12 volt headlight signal on. That will go to your controller box pin number 61, and there will be an inline diode to keep the signal from backfeeding to the buttons. This is the dash button plug. You'll be using these 3 wires in your setup. They are pin number 8, 9, and 10. Pin number 8 is your 12 volt signal down, and that will go to controller box pin number 62. Pin number 9 is your 12 volt signal up, and that will go to controller box pin number 61. Pin number 10 is a 12 volt constant
that will go to your headlight switch, pin number 6. To remove the wires from the headlight harness, this gray plug will then pop out. You can use a dental pick or depinning tools. Once the gray piece has been removed, you can use a thin depinning tool like this to come in from the back side, go on top of the wire, give it a little twist, and the wire should remove. Then repeat the same process for the other 2 wires. To remove the pins from the button, you can use a dental pick or a depinning tool. If you come in from the front, there's a little tab holding the wires in place. Just push it down, and they should fall right out. Just like that. We are going to start with the button plug first. Pin number 10, pin number 9, and pin number 8. Now for the headlight plug, we have pin number 7, pin number 6, and pin number 5. Then reinsert the little gray tab. Alright, and at this time we are now going to connect these 4 wires, pin 51, 52, 53, and 57. 51 will go to fuse 19, 52 will go to fuse number 11, 53 will go to fuse 10, and this will go to chassis ground. So you can connect those at this time. The fuse box is located right under here. At this time, we will now run pin number 5 out of the headlight switch to fuse number 6, 10 amps. Once headlight pin number 5 is wired to fuse number 6, that leaves pin 6 and pin 7. Pin 6 should show 12 volts while the headlights are off. And when you turn the headlights on, it will show nothing. And then on pin number 7, you will have no voltage with the headlights off, no voltage with the park lights on, but you will have a 12 volt signal with the headlights on. This is basically telling the controller box when the headlights are on and when the headlights are off. Continuing on with the headlight switch, we will take pin number 6, which is 12 volt signal off, to pin number 10 on the button. We will just connect those with a piece of wire, run up through the dash, and get them together. The final wire in the headlight switch would be number 7. Pin number 7 is your 12 volt signal for headlight on. That will go to the controller pin number 61 with an inline diode. You can also route pin number 7 to button number 9 with the inline diode, and then button 9 can then go to controller box number 61. Okay, take headlight switch pin number 7, which has the inline diode, and button number 9. You can connect the two and then run these two to pin number 61 in your controller box. Once you've done that, your headlight switch is completely done. You can then wrap that up with some tape,
some electrical tape or some cloth tape to keep it nice and clean. And then we can move on to finishing up the last wire in the button. All that remains now is button pin number 8. You will then run that to controller pin number 62. That is a 12-volt signal for when the headlights are off. And then you'll be done with the button, and then you can also wrap that up with tape. At this point, the headlight switch and the pop-up button are both completely wired up. You should have 2 wires that go to the controller box. And if everything is wired up correctly, this wire should show 12 volts while the headlights are off and the pop-up headlight button is in the down position. When you either turn on the headlights or lift the headlights up without the actual lights being on, voltage will go away. And that is the same for this wire. You should have no voltage with the headlights off, 12 volts with the headlights on, or 12 volts when applying this button. Alright, as a little bonus, I had mentioned showing how to wire up the Sleepy Eye mod so you can make the headlights come up part way but not all the way. When I was wiring up the light switch, pin number 5, which goes to fuse number 6, is a 12-volt circuit. So I ran an extra little pigtail off to be able to run to a momentary switch. So momentary switch is just when you press it, it will give voltage, but as soon as you let off, it's no longer giving voltage. Basically, you will attach 12 volts to one side of the switch, and then the wire coming off the other side will then go to pin number 61 in your control module, which makes the headlights go up. So each time you bump this, it will gradually raise the headlights up little bits at a time until it gets to the very top. You will also want to wire in a diode in between that so there's no backfeeding into the switch. But I didn't want just a basic switch for the setup that I did. I am no longer using the electronic controlled suspension. Let me see if I can get that in a shot here. Over here is the electronic controlled suspension button. I had already upgraded the coilovers in my car, so this button is useless to me. So I turned this into a momentary switch that I will then control the headlights with. And all that is just wiring it up into the harness that goes to the switch. And each time I push this ECS button, the headlights will go up little bits at a time. All right, if everything is wired up correctly, you should have 2 wires left coming out the controller box. Pin number 55 and pin number 56. Pin number 55, you should see a temporary voltage when you turn the headlights on. It lasts for about, I guess, 3 or 4 seconds, and it will turn back off. And then the same thing if you move to pin number 55, when you turn the headlights off, you should see voltage for about 3 or 4 seconds, and then it will disappear. And what that is, that's the timer by the controller box telling the headlights to go up and then telling the headlights to go down. All right, the last 2 wires to connect on the controller box are pin 55 and pin 56. You will need to run 2 wires out under the hood to each of the headlights. Pin 56 is your up signal. That will go to pin number 2 on the headlight motor. And pin 55, which is your down signal, will go to pin 5 on your headlight motor. And to get 2 wires out from under the hood inside the dash, there is a wiring harness grommet that's right behind each one of the fenders. So if you pull the plastic trim panel that goes over the wheel, you can see that grommet, and you can just poke a little hole and run these 2 wires in. This is where it would normally be routed if it were on the first gen car. You will take 1 wire to each headlight. This is the grommet that is by the fuse box below the dashboard.
This one comes out behind the driver's fender. There's a plastic cover that you can lower to gain access, and this is the factory harness that goes to the front of the car. You can zip tie those two wires along this. It'll come out here. At this point, the controller box and everything inside of the car is completely done, so you can just tuck this up out of the way and put a zip tie on it, and go ahead and reassemble all of the dash pieces. Okay, to access the inside of the fuse box, there's three 10mm bolts. Just take those out and you should be able to lift up and move the fuse box over. Inside of your donor's fuse box, you will remove fuse number 2, it's a 30 amp, and the relay that controls the pop-up headlights. You will also remove this pin, which goes to the fuse. And in here, there are 7 wires. Number 6 is not being used, but these other 7 you will pick out and transplant them into your factory fuse box. Once you've inserted this pin into fuse number 2, you will then run it to pin number 2 in your relay. The pop-up relay consists of 8 slots, but only 7 pins will be used. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Number 6 is not used. Pin number 1 goes to the driver's pop-up pin number 3. Pin 2 goes to fuse number 2 30 amp. Pin number 3 goes to passenger's headlight pop-up pin number 3. Pin number 4 goes to driver's pin number 1. Number 5 is a chassis ground. 6 not being used. 7 is a chassis ground. And 8 will go to passenger pin number 1. The pop-up motor plug consists of 6 pins, being 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. 6 will not be used on both the driver's side and the passenger side. On the driver's side, pin number 1 goes to relay pin number 4. Pin number 2 goes to controller pin 56, which is your up signal that is inside the car. Pin 3 will go to relay pin number 1. Pin number 4 is chassis ground. Pin number 5 goes to the controller box pin 55, which is your down signal that is also inside your car. And as I said, 6 not being used. On the passenger side, pin number 1 will go to relay pin number 8. Pin number 2 will go to controller box 56 inside the car. That's your up signal. Pin number 3 will go to relay pin number 3. Pin number 4 is your chassis ground. Pin number 5 is your controller box pin 55, which is your down signal, and 6 not being used. While I was installing the pop-up headlights, I switched from the normal halogen bulb to an aftermarket LED bulb. So this headlight uses a switching ground circuit, and the newer headlights uses a switching positive voltage circuit. So I had to do a quick conversion using a relay to switch it from switching ground to switching 12 volts. On your second and third gen headlights, you'll have a low beam plug and a high beam plug. So to convert it from dual switching ground plugs to a single switching positive plug, I utilize the ground and the 12 volts out of the low beam to the plug first. I made this my ground and this my 12 volts for the low beam. For the high beam, to switch it, I used a standard 12 volt 30 to 40 amp relay, and I ran the ground wire to pin 86 I ran the voltage wire to pin 30 and jumped it to pin 85. And then I ran the switched output of 87 to the center pin. So this way, when the high beams are turned on, this ground acts as the switch to flip the relay to then send 12 volts to the gray plug in the middle position. Okay, at this point, everything should be completely wired up. You should have a gray plug for headlights and a black plug for the motors on the driver's and passenger side. Fuse 30 is in spot number 2 and the relay has been inserted. Your switch and buttons are now wired up in there to the controller box. And now it comes time to physically mount down the actual pop-up headlights. Here you have 2 options. You can transplant in the first gen headlight bucket and radiator support, or you can make the modifications like I did on the 2nd and 3rd gen and not have to cut all the welds out and then swap these 2 units. In the 1st gen headlight bucket, you can see a hole right here in this corner, and that is so that the motor can sit down inside. If you decide to keep the 2nd and 3rd gen headlight bucket, you will need to make a hole similar to it to allow for that motor to sit fully down. Also on the side, you'll need to cut a little bit of clearance right here for that side marker that sits right there. It will make contact with the 2nd and 3rd gen headlight bucket. And that is all the modifications you need to do. As for cutting, you'll need to run some rib nuts into a couple locations in the bottom so that you can actually bolt the headlight bucket down. And you'll utilize a couple of the already mounted threads. You'll need to add 3 M6 rib nuts to each headlight bucket, here, here, and here on both the driver's and passenger side to help mount down that pop-up headlight. Okay, and at this point you are now able to mount your headlights down and test them out. Both headlights are bolted in, plugged up. Everything is completely wired and done. Both headlights are currently in the up position. You can actually raise and lower them with this little dial. You have to raise them up to be able to bolt the two 10 millimeters underneath. But all is done correctly. They should go up and down now. Perfect. Now this little button right here should raise them up without the headlights coming on. Sweet. Also, I went ahead and wired up the halos. These are app-controlled halos that you can change to different colors on your phone. But they are just simply tied into the turn signal and side marker. Which, I would say, I have a blown bulb. Wasn't that a shame? Alright, to go along with the first gen swap, we need to swap out the fog light. So that's your second and third gen fog light. And we need to put these in. One difference is the plug. So the fog light plug on this one's more of like a bladed rectangle. And this one requires more of a oval. So that's just a simple cutting out this one and installing this one. Also remember to pick up the correct fog light brackets that go with the first gen fog lights, because they are different between the years. Okay, let there be light. At this time, you can now install the front bumper. And this thing is really starting to take shape. As you can see, I went ahead and pre-installed that carbon fiber front lip, so that way I don't have to try to do it while the bumper's on the car. Now what's left really is to put the snake eyes in and the turn signals, and we should be able to put the hood on. Now one thing I do have loose is the bolts holding down the pop-ups. The reason for that is once you put the hood on, you will need to kind of adjust the hood around, adjust the headlights around, so they don't rub each other when going up and down. Once the bumper is all bolted in place, you can now put on the hood. There's a couple bolt points there and there. And once the hood's on, you should be able to start to really gap out. It may take a little bit of time. There's a lot of adjustment points to get all your gaps correctly, but a little bit of body massaging and it should start to fit up nicely. So there's a little bit more time that I need to get in here because, as you can see, like right here, the headlight itself is sitting a little high. There's some adjustment screws on the side that you can get to and lay it back. But I mean, overall, it is a pretty clean fit so far. Like I said, maybe just a little bit more time adjusting the gaps, and everything should fit a lot better. But for now, it is doing just great. And one last thing, I'm going to go ahead and fix a problem that's been plaguing us from the beginning. This stereo unit has not had the side brackets to hold it in place, so it's just been free floating in here the whole time. But thankfully, the side brackets are in the new parts car that we got, and we're going to fix that problem so it's no longer an issue. Good. Oh yeah, remember that little extra button that we were wiring up when we put everything together? And all you're doing is, each time you push it, it just sends 12 volts momentarily to the up signal. It allows you to pick your height, and you can still override it with the buttons. And all that does is just allow you to get that slightly, as they say, sleepy eye or lazy eye look. And just like that, we are now completely done. So we went from something like this to that. If anything, James with Donut Media should be proud because, hey, we brought back the pop-up headlights. But I guess the big question is, why? Why did I spend so much time and money on this car? A 30-year-old car with nearly 300,000 miles. Base model engine, automatic transmission, peeling clear coat, and some extremely cancerous rust all over the underbody of this car. Why this one? Why not spend more time and money into this car? Because honestly, that is Megan's first project car, her first 3000 GT, and I mean, it means a lot to her. We have about as much fun driving this car as we do that one, or even this one, because we know that we can take this car anywhere we want and it will just drive. It's a fun car. It doesn't have to be about the biggest and the fastest and the craziest. I mean, that's crazy enough. I think I've gone overboard with that. But just the simple having fun with this car is what it's about. And I like it. So if you've been wanting to do a pop-up headlight conversion on your car, hopefully this video has given you some good insight on how easy it is to do, and maybe gave you the inspiration to do it yourself, because honestly, it was extremely easy to go from that to that. It's not really complicated at all. The biggest thing is making sure you get all the parts that you need the first time and not having to go chase your tail trying to find every last little piece that you need. And sometimes, honestly, you just have to be a little bit different. So, like always, if you made it this far in the video, thank you, and peace. See you on the next one. All right, with a little bit of editing magic, we go from 1991 to still a 91. I don't know what to tell you, my magic's broken. Guess I have to do this the old-fashioned way with a couple of fucking wrenches.
hot in the